We are back on another episode of the Cinema Discovery Project. Should we just make that our opening now?
That sounds good to me. I let Steven do all the singing.
And I came up with that right off the top of my head.
That's
I know
very ingenious.
It was very elaborate, I know, and it's hard to believe, but I did it right on the top of my head. And if you didn't understand my singing, I'll tell you right now, we're on the Cinema Discovery Project again.
We are.
Back for another Spotlight. And if you don't know about our Spotlight episodes, we choose a film. We try to go through the whole film and kind of talk about it, talk about maybe some of the motivations of the character, talk about the characters, talk about the actors and filmmakers involved, and try to get you more acquainted with the film. But as usual, I'm Stephen Billings, and with me as always is, what's your name?
Andrew Cabral. That's what they call me on my birth certificate.
Is that it?
That is it. That's what they say. I don't know.
Oh,
I wasn't there when they named me.
Okay.
But once again, we are back for another Spotlight. I forgot which number this is. I don't really keep track.
This is 10.
Damn, 10. I guess that must
Spotlight.
be true. It must be true. Steven keeps all of our meeting minutes, I guess. But the Spotlight for this time is kind of a hidden gem, but not really, because it's done by probably one of the most famous directors working today. But it's one in his filmography that doesn't get brought up enough, because I feel like other films just kind of dwarf it. You know what I mean? They get talked about so much that you forget about this one. And then when you bring this one up, people are like, what movie's that? Never heard of it.
Yeah.
But this is, of course, The King of Comedy, which is done by one Martin Scorsese. And this came out in 1982. I think this was the film he did right after Raging Bull.
Yes.
Talk about one of his most, well-known films in Raging Bull, probably one of the best movies in his filmography of the decade of the 1980s. But this is one that came out right after it. And it is a markedly different movie than any of his other films that had come out before it, and pretty much the films that came out after it to a certain extent. This movie is a dark satirical comedy. At least that's the way it was when it first came out. But as many great films have become, their meanings and their kind of context has changed over time. And I think this is one that is definitely apropos. It's almost prophetic in many ways. Yeah,
it's very much even more relevant today than it was when it came out, because it's just so ahead of its time.
Yes.
And this film came out at the end of an era. At the end of the 70s, kind of grimy films that that Scorsese, of course, was a part of, with his Raging Bulls and his Mean Streets and his Taxi Drivers, all being very gritty films. And then now this movie kind of deciding to delve into social issues and just kind of putting a spotlight on it without nailing it on the head. You have to actually think about what the movie's trying to say. It kind of not mirrors in the sense of subject matter, but it, like a movie like when we did Dr. Strangelove, a movie that's very much a dark satirical comedy that's putting a spotlight on some very dark issues that some people don't like to talk about, which is something we're dealing with, which is why we're kind of choosing this film,
right?
In the first place, because the new Joker film is coming out. It's stirring controversy about its subject matter. And the thing is this movie, the new Joker film, kind of in some ways mirrors this film in the sense of its kind of story structure and how the character moves through its film. Now, we haven't seen Joker yet, of course, but based off the trailer, based off the trailer and based off of what I've heard, it very much kind of has a King of Comedy way about it, maybe mixed with Taxi Driver.
That's what it looks like to me, in the way in which they showcase the Joker. Just judging by the trailers, just judging by what I've can guess, what I've heard is he's kind of like a more deranged Rupert Pupkin.
Yeah.
And when we get into this movie, you'll see the derangement that Rupert Pupkin has is it's unique. It's
more innocent and more naive than it is.
It's an oblivious derangement or psychosis versus something that is more aggressive or violent.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I mean, when it comes to the Joker character, violence is always inherent within his character.
Yeah, I think that that's the main difference with what the Joker film seems to be doing is that it's more of a statement about mental illness
Right.
than what King of Comedy is, which is more about obsession over celebrity,
Yeah.
obsession, celebrity culture and how people live through other people and not living their own lives. And so yeah, I mean it's there's some distinct differences, but it's kind of the same structure. Which cool enough, De Niro's in Joker, kind of playing the Jerry Lewis character.
From what we understand, yeah.
Yeah, basically, yeah,
What is interesting about The King of Comedy is this is a movie that was kind of in the works for a while. It was a
yeah,
movie that initially was going to be directed by by someone other than Martin Scorsese. It was actually originally going to be directed by Michael Cimino, I think,
hmm
and he of course couldn't do it because Heaven's Gate went so far over
yeah.
budget
It
and
was a
time,
dud.
and that
yeah,
career that movie, murdered his career, for the lack of a
yeah,
better term. And I think at one point Bob Fosse was going to do it, and he wanted Andy Kaufman to be Rupert Pupkin,
yeah,
and he wanted Sammy Davis Jr. to be the Jerry Langford character, and that obviously didn't happen. So it ended up in the hands of Martin Scorsese, and Martin Scorsese at the time was didn't know quite like what to do with the movie. He didn't know quite how to handle it initially because I think Robert De Niro came to him with
yeah. I
the
was gonna say
script like
De Niro had the script. Yeah,
years
yeah,
earlier. And Robert De Niro kind of got the script from a film critic, Paul Zimmerman, I believe. And basically Paul Zimmerman based this movie on the idea of there are autograph hunters, people who
yeah,
just
yeah,
go around to collect autographs from a bunch of different um uh, celebrities and whatnot, and they'll travel and they'll hunt them down, and you see that in this movie. We'll get into it, but like, what happens? I guess maybe his idea was like, what happens if you take that autograph hunting to an absurd, obscene level where you're just obsessed with
yeah,
a specific celebrity? In this case, it's Jerry Langford, portrayed by Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lewis, for those of you who do not know, he passed away 2017, but he was a comedian, actor, director, producer, singer, screenplay writer. He was a kind of a jack of all trades. He really got his rise to fame, I want to say, in the 50s and 60s,
yeah.
doing kind of screwball type, weird, oddball comedies and things like that. He's a comedic actor. Um, he he was, and so him kind of slipping into this role, I think, was kind of apropos because the Jerry Langford character is basically just Jerry Lewis playing
Yeah, I
himself.
was gonna say it's very meta. Yeah,
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 it's just like he's a late Jerry Langford was a late night talk show host, and Jerry Lewis wasn't, but it's kind of in the same vein as like a the Tonight Show or the Late Show, things that are
yeah,
on still on television now. Back in the 80s, um, there was like Dick Cavett and there was Johnny Carson. That was the one I wanted to bring up. This I think is kind of more based on Johnny Carson and things like that. But I guess we can just dive into it right now. Sounds about apropos.
let's do it.
So it starts off transitioning from what I was just saying with it opens with the taping of the show of the Jerry Langford show, and we get to see, and the way in which they shoot kind of the show in this movie, it makes it look like you're watching it on television circa like 1982, where it's
Yeah,
got that 4:3 screen. It's rough looking because TVs back then don't look, there's no HD back then like there
no,
is now, so it looks rather rough, and the film itself aesthetically looks looks rough. Like, it not rough, I say that not negatively, but just like aesthetically, Scorsese kind of like took his like dirtiness and grittiness from like his 70s movie and try and
yeah,
put it into a comedy to make it look aesthetically unpleasing. And I think he did that, on purpose, just because he was shooting in New York, and you kind of have to give once you give New York that grittiness, you kind of can't glam it up. You know what I mean?
No,
And this movie's not a glam movie,
no.
even though it's a kind of about quote unquote show business or someone trying to break into show business.
Well, the thing is too is though that some people, I mean, I guess it's categorized as somewhat of a comedy. It's
Right.
in today's context, it's almost hard to look at this as a comedy.
Oh, I'll say this, we'll get into it, but it is awkward, it's
Yeah,
cringy on purpose, though. That's what kinda makes it so fascinating, is everything in this movie is so purposely done to make it feel so unsettling.
yeah.
And at least it's unsettling from a modern perspective. I don't know if that's how they felt like it
I
was
was gonna
back
say
then.
back then it might have been more funny. You know, it might have looked at it as being more funny, but today it just seems like a very disturbed person. You know, like
Oh, it's
that's
very difficult to watch, especially if you're someone who is socially awkward, who
yeah.
is, doesn't man, we'll get into it. I don't wanna
Yeah,
say everything because I don't wanna explain everything before we actually
yeah,
show
yeah,
examples.
let's
Okay,
get through the
so
movie,
it
yeah.
opens up with the Jerry Langford show. It's like the big intro, like you've seen all kinds of things, tonight, the such and such is going
Tonight's
to be
gonna
out.
be, Tom Hanks,
Yeah, it's gonna
Jack
be
Nicholson.
y
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, anyway, there's a bunch of different, like, guests, and then Jerry Langford comes out, does his monologue and whatnot, and then I believe it cuts to after the taping, cuts to outside and just the throngs of people
Yeah,
waiting to see him, to see Jerry Langford. He's obviously right away we know he's super, super popular, and there's just so many people with their autograph books and everything like that. The security guy comes out and says, "Just give me all your books." He just grabs a bunch of books and takes them inside, and I'm assuming, to get signed, and then he gives them
sure.
back later. But there's just so many people, and then Rupert Pupkin um, walks up, and he's like kind of wading through the crowd. And what is fascinating to me is right away people recognize him, like, "Oh, hey, Rupert," you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah.
like this is a regular spot for these people, as well as Rupert Pupkin, where
Well,
they probably go here like every night
well,
just
yeah, I
to
mean,
get
the thing
autographs and
is
stuff.
it's like it's his people, but the way Rupert's acting, it's like he, feels that he's above them.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yes he does.
and it's just very much his character as we go through the film is that he's very much, in a sense, arrogant. You know, he's
Oh,
very much
he's
self-involved.
delusionally
Yeah,
arrogant.
yeah,
And right away, like some people are like, "Okay, I'll trade you like such and such autograph for whatever." He's like, "Yeah, no, I'm above that now." So he says something like that,
yeah,
like, "Oh,
yeah,
that's not my thing anymore," or whatever. And so Jerry Langford comes out, of course he just gets bombarded by people. Like
yeah,
people just throwing themselves at him, women especially. So he tries to get to his limo and he gets to it. I think he gets inside, and then some woman just jumps inside. And this is a woman who's going to play a bigger part in the movie later on, but it's portrayed by Sandra Bernhardt, and it's a character called Masha, and she's an uber stalker fan. We learn basically throughout the movie how crazy and deranged she is,
yeah,
and she's just like going after him, just pestering him. And then I think he leaves the limo, and then she's just like she just plasters herself against the window, and and then that's when the opening credits hit, and that's when it
yeah.
says "King of Comedy."
It ends on the still of her hands on the window with Rupert looking in.
Yes,
And
and then the
it's
opening credits come up with, like, King of Comedy, directed Martin Scorsese, all that kind
yeah.
of stuff.
And one interpretation, I was listening to some other people talk about this film, and one interpretation which I really like about what that image means is that it's kind of like a TV screen. And it kind of reflects, because the poltergeist, the
Mm,
girl with her hands on the screen, and how, and it kind of mirrors that, and like how, this whole movie's about celebrity, and the celebrities are on the TV, and she's like, and he's on the TV, but he's not really in the center of the TV. He's kind of behind the hands, and it's kind of like
right.
he shouldn't really be there, and because he's
Very interesting metaphor, physical
yeah.
metaphor. When I thought of, like, hands on a TV, I just think of that shot from, uh, Ingmar Bergman's Persona.
Of
Like,
course you would.
yeah, I don't know, 'cause it's literally the cover of the Ingmar Bergman box set from Criterion,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
just look at it all the time, so that's constantly in my mind.
You
Um,
just sit on your couch and constantly look at the Bergman set.
well, it's sitting right there on the table, so it's kind
Oh,
of
okay.
not it's
All right.
hard to avoid, but I just
Whatever.
I just thought of that just because just that sense, coincidentally, that movie is kind of about delusionment and just like psychosis and just crazy mind bending things. And this woman is, it's the Sandra Bernhardt character is very much like that. So her
Yeah,
kind of grasping at something fictitious, believing it's real is kind of apropos. But
yeah.
but moving past that, they finally get her out of the car and or she's no,
Well,
she like rolls down the window, doesn't she? Or something like that. Rupert. Yeah, go.
Rupert keeps helps, with, of course, with his own intentions.
Of course.
But he helps get Jerry back in it, get her out and get Jerry in his car, and then he jumps in at the last minute.
Yeah, and then Jerry's
Um,
like, "You got to get out of here," and Rupert's like, I helped you out over there. You kind of owe me."
he
And it's
like
like, "Oh,"
he
and
gets
he's, "Oh,
there's like a
yeah,
cut on his hand. He's like, "Look, I sacrificed myself. I put myself out there. Just let me ride with you. You can drop me off up the road or something, like, just let me talk with you for a
yeah, let
second."
me talk with you. Let me talk with you." Basically, Rupert's main thing is he wants to be a guest on Jerry Langford's show as the comedian. And he's basically trying to convince Jerry to like let him be on the show during this ride back to Jerry's apartment. And basically, Jerry finally like kind of tells him like, there's yeah, I can't just do that. There's ways, there's different things you have to do to get on there, all this kind of stuff. Basically, finally, Jerry says, call my, I think it's an assistant or a secretary or something like that to set up
Yeah.
this to set something up or to work with me or something like that. Just because Rupert doesn't have any material, he doesn't have
He
anything to
has
go
nothing to
off of.
give him right off the bat. Yeah, I mean,
No,
he's
he
just.
doesn't. He got nothing to give him. But
Well,
what is? Yeah, go on.
I was gonna say one of the things, and we'll go more into this as we go
Right.
through the movie, but it's delving into that mind of a super of fans, and
Yes.
how um they think they know what goes on when it comes to these things. Like Jerry Langford is the star of his show, but he doesn't make the show. Like
No.
he's got people to answer to. He can't just because he's the star make things happen. It ain't up to him.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, Steven and I like we're kind of locked into this now, so we kind of understand certain ins and outs. Where like there's so much more that goes into pretty much any form of the entertainment world than the general public is privy to. Like
yeah.
there are steps that you have to go through to get anything
I mean,
done.
sure, his recommendation would be great, but
Yeah,
it's like he's got producers, he's got people that
yeah. This
have to okay letting some random dude come on.
Yeah,
You know,
there's producers, there's executives, there's writers, there's
and then
everything.
there's just the principle of we need to know whether you're good or not.
That's true too, and he
Yeah, yeah,
doesn't know. So he kind of brushes him off, saying, "Oh yeah, call whatever." And then what happened? And then you already know you're getting an inkling here about how Rupert is socially
yeah.
within this scene, but you get it even more when at the end, like Jerry's walking away up the stairs to
He's
go to his
trying to get.
apartment, and
Yeah,
then Rupert's just like, "Oh yeah, but Jerry, I got more to say," and then he
he
does it
won't let
again. He
him
does it
go.
again.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
won't
yeah.
let him go, and you see people like Rupert Pupkin in the real world a lot. And I'm not talking about like obsessive super daters, people, something like that. Just people who are very socially unaware during
Yeah,
conversations
yeah,
about like how to read someone. Like someone doesn't really want to say anything else. Let them go. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Someone is not into this conversation. Just know when to fold and to get away.
yeah.
Rupert Pupkin has none of those social cues in his repertoire at all. He's very socially inept. That's seen throughout this movie. So the next shot we get is probably one of my favorite parts of this movie. I believe it's
Yeah.
the next shot. Is it cuts from there to a to him sitting down with Jerry Langford, and they're sitting at a bar. They're having a dinner or something like that. I think they're having a dinner, and in your mind when you're watching this for the first time, you're like, "Oh wow, they're cutting to a meeting that they're having already. Where were the
Yeah.
steps before that?" But oh no,
No, no,
Stephen,
no.
this isn't real.
No, no, no.
This is not real at
It starts
all.
to become evident at once Jerry really starts talking. You see who he's talking to, and he's talking. This is a fantasy. This is all in Rupert's head.
Not only that, but
Um,
there's a quick cut to Rupert wearing different clothes that
yeah,
should cue you in right away that this isn't real.
yeah.
So it keeps cutting back from Rupert's delusion of talking to Jerry and him sitting in his basement
He's
talking to nothing.
He said
and
he's talking to these
cardboard
cardboard cutouts.
cutouts.
Yeah.
And man, this is when I was like, holy crap, this is something interesting because
It's like you can look at it and it's funny, but then when
it's
you think about the
sad.
reality of it, it's sad and it's disturbing.
It's sad, it's disturbing, and it's interesting. It's interesting on so many different levels because it's very real, I think, a lot for a lot of lonely people who, because obviously we see that Rupert doesn't have any friends. He's very we'll see in the next scene, literally, he's not very good when it comes to social interactions with women. So we're seeing a pattern here developing. So he's sitting there and he's talking to this fake Jerry, and like the Jerry Langford wants to take some time off. He can't handle it anymore. He wants to take like a 6 week hiatus, and he wants Rupert to take over for him. Once
Yeah.
again, Rupert's like that's a fantasy for him. That's a
Yeah, yeah.
dream for Rupert to take over the show for Jerry
And
Langford.
and what's funny about it is he plays it like
It's real.
he plays it like it's I mean, ultimately he
So
thinks he already thinks he's better than Jerry.
yeah, he plays it like, "Oh, I can't do it.
I
I
can't,
just
I
can't
just
do it.
can't, like
Jerry, I can't. I just don't have it. I don't have the time." And he's also like, he also brings up like, "Oh, perhaps Jerry has brought this up before. Like, I know why you brought me here. I knew you were gonna ask this." And
yeah,
then
yeah.
it's like, and then of course, then one of the funniest things is his mother keeps calling him
Yeah.
from upstairs.
And apparently it's Martin Scorsese's mom.
It's Martin Scorsese's mom making a voice cameo in the movie. In Goodfellas, she made a physical cameo, and in Casino as well. But she makes a cameo in this movie, in this scene as well. But who also makes a cameo in this sequence as well is Kathy Scorsese, who is Martin Scorsese's daughter from an earlier marriage. She's the woman
Oh,
who goes up and asks for an autograph. Her name is Dolores, and then and he goes, "Oh yeah, Dolores is my mother's. Dolores is my father's name." You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
he's got that delusion of people walking up to him in public asking for autographs. But when he's down in his basement and his mom keeps calling for him, he's like, "Ma,
It's
what?" You know,
very much like a child. Yeah.
it's I'll tell you this, it is very real because I've done that on many occasions myself. Many occasions. I may have done that tonight actually before recording this. Like that is literally how
Hmm.
real it is. The older you get while living with your parents, the realer that scene becomes
Yeah.
because you're trying to do stuff on your own. Granted, in Rupert Pupkin's uh, experience, it's a little delusional, but he's still trying to do stuff by himself, and just the mothers or just parents are just intruding on it, and it's just fascinating to see. So the next scene is he goes to a bar, and it's a bar that I believe he frequents often because he knows the bartender woman, who I believe her name is Rita,
Yes.
and he's trying to charm her very awkwardly, Stephen, very cringeworthily. I don't know if you picked up on that, where
It's a little
she
weird.
doesn't even recognize him initially, and then she does, and she's trying really hard not to like offend him or not to like tell him off, but he's very oddly aggressive, weirdly like
Well, he's got confidence,
he's got yeah,
though misplaced.
he's like benevolently aggressive, if that makes any sense. Like that's kind of like passive aggressive, but it's not really passive aggressive because he's like, like he brought her like a flower or something. It's very awkward, their exchange, and he's like
Yeah.
he asks her out for dinner that evening, and they go to dinner that evening, and yet again more awkward conversation ensues. Like he's telling her all kind of things that you don't tell people on a first date. I mean, Steven, I don't know how many first dates you've been on, but saying some of the things he said are insanely awkward, where he's
Yeah.
telling her like, like going away with her and all kinds of things, and then he's showing her his autograph book, and he's like flipping through it. Oh, to when he gets to a name, he's like, "Yeah, you may want to hold on to this one. This one's gonna be big real soon," and it's his own autograph, and
Yeah,
it's
she didn't
really,
like that.
and it's like he's trying to like line up jokes, like be
The
funny and charming, and it's
the thing
landing badly.
is when you're on a date, especially with a woman, if you're going out with a woman, they don't want you to just talk about themselves the whole time.
Yeah.
You gotta ask them about themselves, and that's what he's not doing. He's literally just talking about himself and the things that he's doing and his interests, and then of course boasting himself up by saying he's going to be famous. Um,
Yeah. And which he's like saying that because he has Jerry Langford's autograph. He's like, yeah, Jerry and I are like we're great friends, and just saying all kinds of delusional lies and whatnot. And of course, that date ends pretty poorly. Where basically she says that he needs mental help.
yeah.
Basically, that's her conclusion, and she is not wrong. Rupert Pupkin in modern day would be needed to see a therapist or something.
Oh yeah.
But the next day is he starts on his, I would say, journey into our main storyline of the movie, where he really wants to get onto the Jerry Langford show. I don't know what he does for a regular job. I don't know if he's a courier of some kind. We don't really get a lot of backstory on Rupert Pupkin. What is interesting about this movie is the plot itself is very lean when it comes to uh, like character backstory and
Yeah.
motivations and things like that. All we get is kind of very much on the surface, and it still works very well because we're able to get so much just by what we're given about the characters. So he basically he goes to his first he's dropping off something, and he says, "Oh, can I use your phone? It's a local call." So he uses the phone. So he calls up Jerry Langford's office. He's like, "Is Jerry there?" Thinking he's gonna talk directly to Jerry, even though we literally saw that Jerry said to call his like secretary or assistant. So he calls up there. Of course, Jerry Langford's not going to take his call.
Yeah.
So he says, "Oh, I'll call back later." So the next scene we see is him outside at a payphone in the middle of like Times Square, like hogging a payphone, calling him up, and of course he gives the number of the payphone. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'll be here. Make sure you call this." So he just stands there like all day
Yeah.
waiting for this phone call
He
that
he
obviously is never
you
going to happen.
realize yeah, you realize in the movie he's very much willing to waste his time and sit somewhere all day to meet with Jerry.
Oh yes, he does. It gets him into a lot of trouble, as we'll see.
Yeah.
So he ends up going to the building, the office building, corporate building, whatever, and tells the secretary, "I'm here to see Jerry Langford. We talked a couple of nights ago. He told me to come see him." Da 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 da. Da. So he waits, and the secretary, I believe, comes out to see him. If I'm not wrong, the woman that Jerry told him to see, and then she's like, "Oh,
But
like."
she's very nice. She's
She's
like,
very, very cordial, very nice, and
yeah.
this is kinda how you have to deal with the people like Rupert, people who are very delusional, as if you will, or, they probably get the thing is they probably get so many of these people that there's probably literally a handbook on how to deal with
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
You don't act aggressive, you don't, yell at them, you don't threaten them, you don't do anything like that, you kind of just play into them and just kind of make them go away as easy as you can, you know what I mean? Kinda make them just leave the building as quickly as
Yeah.
possible.
Well, yeah, she's like, we'll be happy to listen to something. And he of course doesn't even have a tape. He thought he was gonna
Doesn't
just be able to get on the show by just showing up.
Well, she
Uh
mentions, like, like, "Where are you like, where do you work out of?" Like, because he says he's a stand-up comedian, and for those of you who are not in the stand-up comedian world, basically, you have to start out at the bottom by doing, like,
do
open mic
clubs and
nights and
yeah.
doing the small clubs and really working your material, diligently,
Yeah.
and from what we've seen, Rupert doesn't do that.
No,
We
he's
he
very much he very much lives through others and only wants to get which is very much why I say it's more relevant today is that people don't want to work hard to become famous. They want to just be famous. Um,
shockingly how appropriate is that you say that, because how many times now does someone become internet famous for doing something silly or
yeah.
something that's inconsequential, something that's dumb or something that's
Or something that's crazy,
ridiculous or something that's
which
crazy? Or
which is what we'll get to later in the movie, but
yeah, I mean, what's interesting is the internet age, it kind of led to a lot of Rupert Pupkins. You know what I
oh
mean?
hell yeah.
Yeah, and a
Rupert
lot of
Pumpkins
them.
every there's got it it's like normal now. It's
Yeah, if anything, he's tame
he's
compared to
tame. Yeah.
what people do now. So he's like, okay. So he goes. and he goes and tries to start recording some
His
stuff on tape.
Yeah, yeah.
Basically, it's like a faux, like what it would be like if he was on Jerry Langford's show, where he does like he has the intro playing, and it does all like the people who are on the show, and then he goes, and the king of comedy, right up and coming king of comedy, Rupert Pupkin.
Yeah.
But before he even gets into that, he has like this really like couple of minute long like thing where he just goes off like thanking like Jerry, I thank you for your time, da 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 da. It's like, man, people don't want to hear this. People really don't want to hear. Just get to it. You know what I mean? Just get to it. But he is not aware of that, so he doesn't. And in the middle, while he's doing his act, his once again his mother calls down from upstairs, like, Rupert, what are you doing, making all that noise at this time? And it's like, and he just can't, like he can't, he can't function. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's stuck in a kind of a state of, you know, arrested development from a certain, you know, perspective. And it's very interesting, very, very interesting. Now, Steven, I can't remember if this is the time. Yeah, because this is when he starts recording again, but in a much lower voice. And
The-
there's
the-
like this weird sequence where he's kind of standing in front of a picture of
yes.
a crowd,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
in his head he can hear the cheers, and he thinks he's working the crowd.
Yeah.
And then there's a great kind of camera shot of kind of an elongated hallway shot. Really, really interesting.
Yeah,
And then
it's
go
probably
on.
the most gorgeous shot of the film.
I would say
I
so.
would say, yeah.
The film has very static aesthetic where it's just kind of a lot of, not a lot of cross-cutting or things like that, or a lot of elaborate editing techniques. I think Scorsese purposely shot it flat. He actually, from what I was reading, he tried to shoot it like he was shooting a silent film, where it
Yeah.
would be a lot of static aesthetics, where things are just playing out in the screen, and that happens a lot because there's a lot of great dialogue in this movie, and it's really, really interesting because I think we skipped over when he left the Jerry Langford's office the first time. He runs into the Sandra Bernhardt character again, and what we learn is that they are acquaintances somehow. Because I'm
Well,
assuming
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that they both Jerry Langford fans. They both tried to get his attention a lot, and she's like,
She wants
yeah,
him to give him a letter.
yes. And
Yeah.
but he's like, oh yeah, like Jerry and I are friends now. I can't do that. I can't betray his trust. I'm not gonna, if he sees me with you. Da, 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 da. And what is interesting is a lot of that, a lot of those people on the street are just regular people. They're not like extras.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting. And I believe there's, yeah, and she's like, just they're back and forth. Their dialogue together as they're walking and talking is so vapid. I think a lot of it's improvised. A lot
Well,
of stuff I think was improvised in general throughout the
yeah,
movie.
her name, I can't, what's her name again?
Uh, Masha, that's her character's
Yeah,
name.
well, yeah, she apparently Scorsese casted her for the fact that she had a very naturalistic acting style,
Mhm.
and because she was very good at ad libbing. So they wanted, so very much a lot of them scenes are just off the top of their head, not in the script.
Oh, they very,
So
yeah,
yeah,
they very much are. So they have an acquaintance, and that acquaintance, that I don't even know. They're not even friends. I don't even know what they are. Just
he doesn't have any real
he
friends. He
doesn't
doesn't.
have any friends.
Yeah, I mean,
And it's just like, but they're gonna team up later on, um, for like the main part of main part of the movie. But basically, the first hour of the movie is Rupert Pupkin trying to get onto the show. So he does his tape, and he goes, and I can't remember. There's a sequence, Steven. I don't know when it takes
I
place.
think we get a shot of Jerry walking through the neighborhoods first.
Yeah,
Is that
not. I was kind of trying to remember that time where he's in his basement. He has a cutout where he sits in the middle between Jerry um and Liza
whatever the
Minnelli,
guest was? Yeah.
and Liza Minnelli, and I can't remember when that specific part occurs. But there's a moment. I guess I'll bring it up now. There's a moment where he once again is pretending he's on the show, and
Yeah,
he
yeah.
sits between. He has a chair set up, and it sits between a cardboard cutout of Liza Minnelli and Jerry Langford. And what is interesting is that Liza Minnelli and Martin Scorsese had like a thing back in the '70s, a relationship, an
Mhm.
affair, or something like that. So I thought that's rather interesting that she's in this. in the movie as a cardboard cutout.
Yeah, yeah.
I think he also directed her in New York, New York,
Okay.
which was one of his films that I think it was the film that came out after um, Taxi Driver. I think he did
Okay.
New York, New York, which also starred Robert De Niro as well. Robert De Niro was a saxophone player in that movie, I remember.
Okay.
So anywho, that happens. I just remember that being another odd situation. But as you were saying, there is a sequence where Jerry like walks through like the neighborhood.
He's walking to his office from his apartment.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
you know, everybody's saying hey to him. They all
right,
notice him, and there's one particular interaction that's funny yet, you know,
hilarious.
says a lot about, once again, fan culture, where a lady, some older lady, notices him, and she's on the phone, and he, you know, wants him to sign something. He signs something, and then he wants her to talk on the phone to his sister, and he says, "Well, I gotta get, I can, I." And then she basically says, "I want you to die.
No, not only that,
Get
get
cancer."
cancer and die.
Yeah, yeah,
Apparently that line was improv and they just left it in.
yeah. So it
Wow.
tells you a lot about entitlement. You know, like
That
how entitled people are. Fans, you know, fans of these Marvel films.
I was gonna say, if you get
Any
on,
fan, you know,
yeah.
especially Star Wars now.
Oh my goodness. T Fandom right now is at such a fever pitch of insanity that it's crazy. And I don't mean, and I'm saying that in a general sense. Of course, there's regular fans who are just, normal fans. They love whatever property it is. But then there's like crazy, crazy fans who do have a sense of entitlement, and they have a lot of very strong opinions about things. And often those strong opinions are just them screaming, you know, violent things like get cancer and die.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? And this movie came out in 1982, and that's long, long before the world of social media and the internet. And it just shows you that fandom can go either
That
way.
was there. It was there. It just wasn't easy. We just didn't really know about it because we weren't as connected as we are now.
Well,
So
no, there's this delusionment that all of kind of the social media problems with people and social media culture all of a sudden kind of cropped up over the last couple of years. No, people have been like that for decades. There's just an easier way for them to vocalize it to millions
yeah,
and millions of people. And there's just, you notice more of them because there's just more voices
they can spread their bullshit, you know,
faster,
more.
faster and wider. And that's what you see in this movie. But getting back to kind of the stream we're going on with Rupert Pupkin's journey to the Jerry Langford show, the night he goes and delivers his tape, and the woman says, "Okay, well, we'll get back to you." Basically saying like, "We'll get back to you eventually." And he's like,
Yeah,
"Oh, when
yeah.
do you?" And of course, him being him, he's like, "Oh, when do you think that's gonna be?" Which is like, oh man, you're lucky you even have it. Like in the most
My
cases, you should be lucky you even have a tape
Yeah,
to
no,
give them.
maybe the end of the week, maybe by next Monday. You know,
Yeah, by Monday. It's like, oh, I'll wait.
I'll just
Wait.
wait here. I'll just wait and see if Jerry comes
I'll,
in.
I'll just wait. I'll just wait here. And she's like, oh man, I mean, Jerry, we're busy today. It's probably not going to be me tomorrow. She even goes to the length of saying, you know what? Check back tomorrow. We'll probably have it
Yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah.
And she even like goes back on it to even like be gracious enough to give him a time, like an early time. And then he's like, "Oh, you know what? I'll still wait." it's, it's like, and man, he just doesn't get it. Just doesn't get it. And of course, um,
He wants you know, instant
immediate
gratification.
immediate
Yeah.
satisfaction, thinking because in his mind he thinks he's that good to the point where he should get like special treatment because of it. And he does end up leaving. And what is interesting is that he has another delusional like episode where where Jerry has listened to the tape and thinks it's fantastic. He thinks it's like the best tape he's ever heard. And of course that doesn't turn out to be the true, because when he goes back to
Yeah.
when he goes back, the woman says, "Yeah, we listened to it." Whether they actually listened to it or not is up for debate, because they kind of hand him back the exact same packaging, looking the
Yeah, yeah.
exact same way. Looks like they did not even open it,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I'm pretty sure they probably get hundreds, hundreds of tapes from people who think they're good enough to be on the show. This probably happens now all of the
Oh
time.
yeah. Yeah.
This happens in the movie world, this happens in the music world, this happens in the art world, this happens all the time where people submit their work and and these places are just getting so much of it that you don't know whether they actually see it or not, and chances are bad that you're gonna get, approved, or you're gonna get a
Yeah.
job, or you're gonna get something. I mean, it would be a great world if, like, Steven and I submitted a screenplay and all of a sudden got bought by a studio, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
instantly, but that never happens, you
No.
know what I mean? It would be nice if we, like, Steven and I moved to Hollywood and got jobs directing movies right off the bat. Like, that would be
Sure.
cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's
Well,
so
that would
awesome.
happen, right?
Things like that don't happen, and, of course, for Rupert Pupkin, she graciously tells him, "We listened to it, we like some of your stuff, some of your one-liners weren't so great, but your timing was good, but we just don't think you're ready for this for the show."
Do the show.
And,
Yeah.
of
You need to
course,
keep working.
we want you to keep working on it and whatnot, and he's like, "Well, tell me the lines, I can get rid of those lines. I don't
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
have them in there, I can work those out." And then, of course, she's like, "Yeah, yeah, you do that, whatever." She's just trying to get him out of there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sh And he's like, and of course, Rupert is not taking no for an answer, not taking rejection well, and he decides that he's basically going to sit in there until he can talk to Jerry directly, because he doesn't believe that this woman's, um, like, qualified to judge his work. Only Jerry can judge his
Yeah.
work.
Because he specifically says something. He's like, "So wait. So are you speaking for Jerry?"
"Yeah, are you speaking for Jerry?" And she's like, "Yes, yes, I am."
Yes. He trusts my judgment.
And what Rupert doesn't understand is what we mentioned earlier, is that, of course, Jerry doesn't listen to any of the tapes that come in. Of course, it's underlings that listen to tapes. That's the way that happens in every industry. I mean, you know how many times a screenplay is probably passed around in Hollywood before it ever reaches, like, final version of
Yeah.
production, or before it even reaches, an executive's hands, probably gets read by so many people who are just called readers, who are
Yeah.
just, like, their job is literally to read screenplays and to basically either approve them or not approve them, and they're not like anybody of any note. They're just people with jobs, essentially, and that happens all of the time. So he decides he's gonna sit in there. He's gonna stage a sit-in, and of course he's just sitting there and sitting there, and then of course security gets called, and the security guy says, it's like, "Yeah, well, talk to me outside. Talk to me outside." And Rupert is not. He's not being too friendly. He's not budging, really. And then eventually the guy escorts him out. And then Sandra Bernhardt's character Masha's there, and she basically coaxes him to go back in, because she's like, "Oh yeah, Jerry's there. He's in his office. Da da da. You know what I mean? They lied to you. They did, because he's like, "Oh yeah, they told me he wasn't. They told me he wasn't there." Da, da, da." And then so he goes and he storms in. Basically,
Yeah.
first of all, there's no security in that office whatsoever. Like, I would have a security guard at least at the doorway, and there isn't. There's just a rather old, very rather polite secretary who, when she sees Rupert, she goes, "Oh no," and then she picks up the
Jeez.
phone, calls security again. Thought it was kind of funny, and he's walking into down all the hallways, into all the offices, and it's actually all done in and looks like one
Yeah.
shot. So you
And
just
I
see
love
him
that.
going
Yeah. I
in and
love.
out.
Yeah, I love the shot where it stays in like this cubicle area, and you just see a doorway, and you see
Yeah,
like cops running by. It's
he's
almost like
running
a it's
by.
almost like a Stooges situation or
Yeah, it's like
something.
almost like a Scooby Doo type
Yeah,
situation.
where it's one door, you see Rupert go by, then you see cops go by, then you see it's pretty funny, but yeah,
So
eventually they get him, you
They
know.
f and they forcefully throw him on. They say, "If you come back here, we're calling the police."
Yeah.
And then that's and you would think that would be the end of that. But,
Oh, no, 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 no.
Rupert, no. Rupert, what are we doing? Rupert decides to go the next level, and the next level, which is obviously
To try to find Jerry
try to
at
find Jerry at his, like, summer home,
yeah,
essentially.
yeah, yeah.
And
He finds out that he goes to this place and decides to take him and his who he probably thinks is his girlfriend with him.
Rita. Yeah, Rita, and they go on a train, and he's just there, like, he's there he's talking as if he's living a completely other life. Like, his brain, like, slips into an alternate dimension where he's like, "Oh yeah, Jerry said we're gonna meet there at thing, we're gonna do this, da 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 da." And it's like, and you're watching this, you're like, "Oh my goodness, this is not gonna end well." And what is so brilliant about this movie is, that the cringy and the awkwardness and bad things are coming, yet you still want to see them happen.
Yeah,
It's very similar, and I mean, it's a different degree to people on the highway. They see an accident and they just can't help but slow down and
yeah,
look. You know what I mean? The rubberneckers, I think they call them, and they
yeah,
just can't. They just can't do it. They just can't
yeah.
stop. And with Cooper, you just can't help but see like, man, what is he gonna do now that's gonna be so outlandish? So he decides to go and invite himself to Jerry Langford's summer home,
Yeah,
and he
and does
shows up there like he's an old acquaintance, like he's an old college buddy, and
does he have his vision before we get to it though?
which
Does he have
vision?
the vision of his wedding?
Oh, wow, I think he does have that beforehand.
Yeah, I think he has it before he goes on this trip. Of
Yes,
where he
I
goes,
completely forgot
it's
about this.
yeah. Basically, they're having his wedding on the show. Like he's surprised,
Yes.
and one of the guests is going to marry him, and Jerry's his best man, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, isn't it like his parents there or something? Not his parents, but yeah, it's he has this delusion of getting married on the show, and obviously it just doesn't go that way at all.
No.
So he shows up and, um, the caretaker of the house,
Who is a
I don't
known
know,
actor too? Trying
I
to
was
think of his name.
I was just about to say the Alfred of the house, but that's not him. That's not right. Um, but I know the actor you're talking about, and his apparently his lines, like, throughout that scene were completely improv'd. Um, is it Chuck? No, not Chuck Low. No, that's man in Chinese restaurant. Yeah, I don't know if we wanna stand on this for too long, but if you wanna look it up, I think
I'm
it's
looking it up.
Kim Chan.
Okay, yeah, I
Yeah,
found it.
Kim,
Yeah,
yeah, he plays a character known Jono. I'm looking at it right now on
but
IMDb.
he's shown up in a lot of movies. He was in Lethal Weapon 4.
Yes, he was. He was in The Fifth Element,
Yeah, yeah.
um, 16 Blocks, I guess we won't talk about that. He was in
Mm.
Shanghai Nights. Um, yeah, he was in a lot. He was actually in Kundun, which is
Ah,
another Martin
yes.
Scorsese's film, as second Chinese general. He was also in Private Parts. He
He
was
was in
in
Wayne's World 2.
Was he?
He
Was
was
he
the
the father?
father. Yeah, he's
Oh
the
my
father.
goodness. Well, that's what you should have opened up with, Steven.
I know. I don't know
I would have
what
gotten
I was
that right
thinking.
away. Was he the father in
Yeah,
Wayne's World too? I don't know, I can't see it here.
dude, I know it is.
Uh,
Come on, man. Confirm it for me.
I
I know it
can't
is.
confirm. I'm on his IMDb and it's not here.
Dude, that has to be him.
I don't think it is.
Oh
He
my
was in
god, it's breaking my heart.
I don't think he is, no.
Oh, that's not right.
I could look up Wayne's
He
World
has
too.
a twin then. Nah,
Wayne's
it's James Hong is the father.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a much more famous actor.
Damn it. They look almost exactly alike. I know that
Eh,
sounds racist, but it's
y
not.
but, but so they say, "Oh yeah, Jerry is." He goes, "Jerry home," and he goes, he's like, "Oh no!" He walks. He doesn't even ask for Jerry. He walks in
No,
and
he's
says,
just
like, he says, like, yeah, put our things in like the big bedroom and and all kinds of stuff. And the guy's like, "Jerry's not here." And he
he's
goes,
like,
"Where
well,
is he out Was
he's
he out
out. Yeah,
golfing?
yeah.
Was he out golfing? I hope he's gonna shoot he's gonna shoot less than 100." Hey, that guy, he's talking referring to like par shooting in golf. The lower the score, the better and whatnot. But the guy just keeps telling him, "Yeah, Jerry's not here," and he's like, "Oh, that's okay. We'll just wait for him." And he's like, and the guy doesn't know what to do, what to say, because Rupert Pupkin is so delusionally convincing.
He's pushy.
He's so he's so naturally delusional that, like, you believe him. You know what I mean? If you never met this guy before and this guy comes
He's
up to
almost
you,
like a car salesman
yeah,
in a
he's that,
way.
like, in a way, he's like that level of convincing.
Yeah.
Oh, but car salesmen, you can kind of tell they're lying to you because they're so over the top. Rupert just so naturally, like, talking like you
It's
wouldn't
what
believe
leads
that
him to
he's lying.
almost being a sociopath. Like like though he's not really that dangerous. Like he's not shown any aggression, but he's obviously narcissistic and he's obviously he lies very easily.
But he does
Um,
lie very easily, but he almost lies with awareness. Versus, I think sociopaths don't like, they lie, like, deliberately, you know what I mean? Like, they lie,
well,
like,
yeah, I mean
naturally. While Rupert is like, he's doing this he's lying and he knows he's lying, Whereas I don't think sociopaths know they're lying.
Yeah, he might
Maybe, I
be.
don't
He's
know.
so delusional that he doesn't
Mm,
realize what is reality and what is not. You know, he
yeah.
thinks that he's got an in with Jerry that he doesn't really
Yeah,
have.
he
So
thinks they're
he thinks that
friends.
he's not. He doesn't think he's lying.
No.
You know.
So he's in there, he's pouring himself some drinks, they have music playing, they're dancing together,
Yeah,
and
and
first of all, he's convinced, he's convinced his companion or his, woman he thinks his
Rita.
girlfriend, whatever, Rita, that this is all true, that, like, think she's gonna meet Jerry Langford, they're gonna spend a lovely weekend here, all this kind of stuff, and, Jono calls up Jerry, and he's like, yeah, this guy, in of course broken English and whatnot. You know, your friend showed up and all this kind of stuff, and and then Jerry shows up with golf club in hand. With I think his golf gloves are still on, and he shows up and he's like, "Where are they?" And then they're walking down from downstairs, and Rupert just talks to him like, "Oh, Jerry, you're finally here. How'd it go at the golf course?" Like a regular conversation, like
Yeah.
nothing's wrong. And Jerry doesn't even say anything. Like Jerry just stands there with a look on his face of pure like hatred and contempt, like just like so beside himself. And Rupert just keeps talking, and he's like, "Jerry, why aren't you saying anything?" It's like, "Oh, we have all this, you know." And he's like, and then he actually brought like work for them to work on. I guess like to work on his material or something, thinking that like Jerry would have like graciously welcomed into his home and all this kind of stuff. And I feel so bad for Rita, who was just caught up in this, and
Well,
she right away
it's
picks up that this is not right. You know what I
well,
mean?
as much as I feel bad for her, I'm just wondering how she got this far. Like, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
like. Does she have an attraction to him at all? Why is she there?
I have no idea. They did. That's the one thing that's kind of a gap there where we just go from,
Like,
him being kicked
is
out of
she
that
just
office to
wanting?
that.
Is she just going with him because she feels bad for him, or is she with him because she thinks she's going to meet a star, or does she actually like him at all? Like, I don't get that. I don't get any kind of like vibe that she actually has romantic feelings for him.
No, no,
But so I
I
would
don't
assume
know
it's
what it
more that
is.
she feels bad for him.
Yeah, they don't really develop that much at all, really at all. But she quickly picks up that things aren't the way they're supposed to be. She's like, Rupert, let's just leave. And Rupert's resistant, of course. And then Jerry pretty much yells at him, he kicks him
Finally,
out,
yeah,
just tells him like, you are one crazy. Like I forgot the terms. He basically insults him. He insults
yeah,
him,
yeah, yeah.
and he's like, what's
No, he
wrong
calls him
with
a
you?
moron. He
Yeah, he
calls him a
calls him
moron.
a moron
Yeah.
and kicks him out. And and this is when kind of this is actually when, if you read any synopsis of this movie, this is when that synopsis actually kicks in.
Yeah.
Because up until this point, we're about an hour or even over an
Well,
hour
it's over an
into the
hour. Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
But the movie moves quick. The movie is
Yeah.
about an hour and 49 minutes or so,
Yeah.
with credits, so just about 10 minutes under 2 hours, and which is kind of short for Scorsese movies. His films seem to go to
Yeah.
that 2-hour mark and over a
Yeah.
lot.
Lately, he's hitting
He's
three
pushing.
hours all the
Oh,
time.
I can only imagine what The Irishman's gonna be. I can't
Oh,
wait.
it's 3.5 hours.
Oh, good. Good. I mean, luckily, I know we're physical media junkies, we like all the movies and stuff, but I'd rather sit 3.5 hours in my home than sit 3.5 hours in a movie theater,
Sure.
personally.
Well, I don't. That didn't matter to me.
No, I'm just saying, like, I don't wanna be around strangers that long. That's just me, my social
Sure, I
off
get it.
my social anxiety.
I
Um,
get it.
but I guess this episode actually also functions as kind of a pre-show to The Irishman, which is coming out
Sort
in
of.
theaters November 1st in limited, and I'm assuming by limited they mean LA and New York and no place else. And even though I know it's playing at festivals right now, it just played at the New York Film Festival and got rave reviews. No big shocker there. But it comes out November 27th on Netflix for everyone to watch. So this kind of functions as a double episode talking about Joker as well as The Irishman. So Rupert Pupkin makes his next move in his journey to get onto the show, and this is when he decides that along with Masha, they're going to capture Jerry at gunpoint and hold him hostage.
Which the gun that they use is not a real gun.
No, it's not. It's like
It's a
shoots
dart
like
gun. Yeah.
darts or like little the Nerf thingies. Um, and they capture him, which I would kind of not bothers me, but like if Jerry Langford's that big of a star, you'd think he would have a personal bodyguard around him at all times.
You'd think.
Just because the way the movie sets him up at the beginning as being a superstar to the point where people are throwing themselves at him, he needs like personal security all the time.
That
Like,
that and the fact that when it happens, nobody sees it happen.
no, no one's around him at all. It just kind of
Nobody's
happens.
like, "Oh wait, hey," because we already seen a scene where he's walking through and everybody's like, "Hey, it's Jerry, hey!" And then in this moment, nobody notices Jerry, and then gets picked up and nobody says anything.
No, and I think it's done. Isn't it done at night?
No,
Because they
it's done.
kind of
It's in broad daylight.
it's on because I know they stalk him for a little bit. Like they wait for him to leave his apartment and to
Yeah,
go
yeah,
for his walk that we were just talking about.
yeah.
And that's when they pick him up. Like they hold him at gunpoint, force him in the car. Then they bring him to Masha's place. And apparently, Masha, from what we heard a little bit of dialogue earlier, is that Masha is kind of well off financially. She lives in
Yeah.
like a penthouse or
Yeah.
something like that. And what we see is she does live in like a rather nice penthouse apartment.
Yeah.
Um, and we don't get much backstory on her, but obviously she's a little well off. But what we learn is that she's a kind of super stalker of Jerry. She is like
She
next
she she
level
wants she wants
stalker.
to have sex with him.
Yeah, she wants him in every sense of the word.
Yes.
Physically, obviously, like Steven just said. Um, and so they bring him there and they start their they call them up to their demands. And it's actually a really funny scene. I mean, talk about darkly comedic. They have him call up the producer, and they have Jerry call up the producer, and Rupert's gonna sit there with cue cards for him to read off of. And these cue cards are like out of order, upside down, absolutely
Yeah, he's like
bamboozled.
in the middle of saying stuff like, "If you don't adhere to my demands,
And then the next
you will never see him again." And
Yeah,
I'm
but
just like, but
it's like the most plain message ever, and he's got cards for it. And then he's got like the sentence will end, and then the next card will be blank or upside down.
and he
It's
has to stop, even though we know where the sentence is going.
Yeah,
We have to
because it's
stop
obvious.
because yeah,
And Jerry's like, cards blank. And then he's like, cards upside down. And then Rupert's like, he picks up, he's like, oh, and he's like shuffling them around, and then he turns it back over, and then like a bunch at the bottom will just fall out. It's just hilariously inept. And
yeah,
that's kind of like the comedy of this movie is just Rupert just a completely inept person and just doesn't know how to do anything right. He's
yeah,
like kind of almost like an Inspector Clouseau type guy where he's just like that, like inept in every way. So they call up, makes the demands. Rupert wants to be the first guest on the show tonight. I don't know if it's tonight or whatever the next show is going to be. He wants to be the first guest. Um, or like I guess maybe they threaten like Jerry's gonna get killed or something. They have him at gunpoint or something. And and of course, like the studios, like the people at the studio are like deciding, like, can we do this? Should we do this? What's our liability? What's this and that? And there's a scene with all of like kind of like the producer and everybody, the executives in there saying like, are we going to be liable for this? Like, what if he says something? What if he says something coded online that's like a coded terrorist message, and
yeah.
all of a sudden like 50 people die? Like, are we going to be like, we can't have that happen? And basically they do all that, and they decide that they'll tape him, but we don't necessarily have to put his tape on, air it
Yeah,
tonight.
they hook up with the FBI.
Yes, they
Uh,
do.
yeah,
And they
and
and they and yeah, go on what you're gonna
yeah,
say.
they hook up with the FBI and they decide they're going to pre-record whatever it is, and
Mm,
that it's going
what's
to
it that?
go. Yeah, well, that it's going to definitely air because, um, no matter what they do, I mean, the main concern is to get Jerry back.
Yes.
You know.
S so, Rupert leaves Jerry in the care of Masha and decides to go make a follow-up call at a payphone. And he calls them, say, and they want to talk to Jerry. They want like, proof of life, proof that he's okay. And then he's like, well, I have an article of clothing from him that I'll show you as proof and whatnot. And he also goes like, I know that you're recording this call. I heard the click. I understand what you guys are doing. And basically he goes to the studio, and and he's
He weaves his way in.
yeah, he does weave his way in. But what he does is he shows up there and something, you know what happens is somebody's supposed to be on the show, and it's a writer who's there with like his family and all this kind of stuff. And the security guard's like, "What's your name?" And he looks up the list, and the guy's name's on the list. And I'm assuming that guy just got bumped because of Rupert.
Well,
Pumpkin.
yeah, I was gonna say it's like what's funny is the thing that happens to Rupert happens to somebody that's actually supposed to be on the show.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody who's actually like accomplished something in their life. This guy's like an author who's written a book, and he gets like thrown out for.
To me, is very much a metaphor for the fact that stuff that's happening today. People without talent are getting the spotlight, and people that don't have talent are getting left behind.
Yeah, that's the caveat, or that's the kind of randomness of the modern internet world, where you kind of just get lucky. You know what I mean? Talent doesn't necessarily dictate success anymore, because the platform is so wide.
As long as the public wants you, you're okay. Yeah,
very true. So he slips in while that chaos is happening, and he's actually dubbed his name over the phone as the King, which is very, very egotistical, if you ask me. And so he walks in and he goes to like the camera guy. He's like, "I'm the king." And he's like, "Where am I? Where should I go?" And the guy's like, "Oh yeah."
The guy doesn't know anything about.
Guy knows nothing about him, right? And he goes, "Yeah, go. Yeah, so you're gonna go to the back. Your dressing room is set up in the back with a throne. It's just the door's marked king, and then but he ends up running into that secretary / assistant again, and she's like, "What are you doing here?"
It's the executive woman.
Yeah, the executive woman who saw him before.
Yeah, well, you said secretary.
Yeah. She's not? Is she an executive?
No, she's an executive. Yeah, that woman, the blonde woman that gets his tape is.
I guess I was. The
old lady is the secretary.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right. Okay, so go back and just dub in executive.
No, we had it right earlier.
I kept saying secretary / assistant.
Oh, did you? I don't know.
Yeah, so just go back in.
I assume she was an executive
she's she's in production somewhere.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just assumed that.
Right. But snip out executive and just put it back. I got it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Who cares?
Right. But we know who we're talking about.
I'm not gonna edit this right now.
Damn it! I thought I had him this time. But he runs into her again, getting back on track, and she obviously doesn't know that it's him, and he goes, "Oh, I'm the king," and of course she knows what that means. Yeah. So she brings him to the back, and the first people to get him are, of course, the authorities, the FBI people that are working, the cops, or maybe not cops, but the authorities, and they sit him down and start questioning him, like, were you involved with the kidnapping of Jerry? He says, "Yes, I'm the one who did it." First he shows them like a handkerchief or something that's at Jerry's to prove that Jerry is still, that he's the one.
Yeah.
And then they sit him down, question him, and then they said, "Will you lead us to Jerry?" And he says, "No." And he's like, and then just kind of standard questioning, and then he goes, like, "I think I should get to makeup." because he's like, because he's going to be on the show, and the guy's like, "Oh yeah, we'll get you the makeup.
The guy's like, I can put some red in your face.
Yeah, I can put some red in your face." Basically, meaning they can beat him up.
Yeah. So and it ends on a kind of the, after the guy says that, and then he's like, "I really think I should get to makeup."
Yes,
I think I got to go on soon, and then it kind of cuts there. Yeah, it cuts there.
And I believe we cut to.
Well, we cut back and forth between that and back at the apartment.
Oh my goodness, where things are getting weird.
It's getting weird, and Jerry
is tied up with he's wrapped in duct tape significantly. Yeah, he's wrapped in duct tape.
It's not even good tape. It's like painter's tape or something.
Yeah, I don't even think it's good duct tape, to be honest.
It's not duct tape. It's like masking tape.
Yeah,
or something.
Well, anyway, there's a lot of it, and he's tied to a chair.
Yeah,
and Masha decides to basically talk to him as if they're on some type of candlelit date, because she's got all the candles lit up, and they're sitting at a dining table, and she's just confessing every dark, deep secret she has about him. And that's when things get a
And then
little
she
crazy.
starts to undress. Yeah.
No, not even that, but she's like, what if I, wouldn't it be great if I just cleared off this table right now? And what is interesting to me, she clears off the table, and there's like a significant candelabra with candles like fully on fire. Like she just knocks off onto the ground. I'm like, that may catch on fire.
Yes,
That looks
yes.
dangerous. And then she proceeds to, um, like you said, get undressed, and
And then
she's essentially going to sexually assault him.
yeah,
And
yeah. Well, I
it's
think it cuts
really
away.
dark, but from a modern context.
Oh yeah, and I think it
Um,
cuts away, and it gets back to Rupert where he's um, getting ready to go on stage and do his act again.
well, I
And
think it doesn't it cut to him with the guys, and they stop at that bar, right?
well, no,
And
no,
because he wants,
well,
yeah,
they show his whole performance
they
first.
show his old performance at the bar,
Well,
though.
at the bar, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
what happens is they stop at that bar where Rita is working, that bar that he frequents, and that's when it cuts away from that whole sexual assault
A counter.
escapade
Yeah.
encounter, and he stops there. He says, "I gotta stop here, right, real quick." Goes in, he goes in, he changes the channel to the Jerry Langford show, and he's just like, "Hey, wait," and he tells the bartender woman Rita, like, "Just watch this," and it shows his, and it's the intro. Tony Randall is filling in as host of the show. For those of you who don't know who Tony Randall is, Tony Randall was on the television show The Odd Couple back in the day. He played the Felix character, the one who was the cleanlier of the two, the more neurotic of the two, of Felix and Oscar, and that's where I know him from. And basically Rupert goes on and does his act, and the audience loves it. It's an interesting act. It's a self-deprecating act, self-aware act, and it's and it goes over really well with the crowd.
And I'll be honest with you. I didn't think it was terrible.
No, I mean,
I
I
mean,
wasn't really judging it from like, oh, is that a great stand-up act? I guess I'm not really sure.
not
I'll
not
say,
really, but
yeah,
the thing is, you'd expect it to be really bad,
right.
like it was unwatchable. But I think he obviously has somewhat of talent. The thing is it's more of a mockery than it is probably his. Though the material itself is, is he's talking about himself a lot.
Yes.
But his deliveries and his mannerisms and things are all Jerry. You know,
Yeah,
like
he's
like
probably pretty much copying his idol.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? As many of us do. I mean, a lot of people copy their idols in many, many ways, in very, many forms, whether it be movies, TV, music, whatever, art. That just
It,
happens. It just
and we
happens.
and we forgot a great cameo right before he
Mm.
goes on stage. Martin Scorsese cameos.
There's a Martin Scorsese cameo. Tell me about it.
Yeah, there right before he goes on stage. Before we get to the bar scene, he shows him like his material, like it was
Oh yes, yeah.
remember.
Yeah, like his intro.
Yeah, and I guess he was reading it, and he's like, "Actually, this is kind of funny," and like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, because he shows him, like, and he's like, "So what's your, like, what are you gonna say? What's your monologue? What's your act?" Because they want to screen it to make sure he doesn't say anything obscene, and he keeps
yeah,
reiterating to them, it's gonna be clean. There's no, no curse words, no anything like that.
yeah.
Which he's right. I mean, for what's crazy about Republican is that he doesn't swear, and he's not a crude, crass person. He's not someone who I think is going to physically assault anybody, but he's just dangerous in other ways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is very interesting. But like I said, he kills it on his performance, and
And then he walks out of the bar with the FBI agents
he
and says
does.
he says he'll um take him to Jerry. But the thing is Jerry has already escaped.
Yes, he has.
Yeah.
He convinced Sandra Bernhardt to let him go, not let him go, to untie
Well,
him,
so
and
that they could
he
have sex.
yes, and then he knocks her down, grabs the gun, and then she like pretends to like shoot it at, because he holds it. He's like, "Oh, it's not quite right." Of course, it's a plastic gun. You can tell plastic from metal, so he just like shoots it at her, and it's just like you said, plastic darts or whatever. and he's just like, and last thing we see of him, he's like kind of like running down the street.
Well, yeah, I mean, then he slaps her and knocks her down,
Yes, he does.
and then he walks out and he's running out the street and he gets away, and then from there it's kind of a montage, right? It's
Yes,
kind of
it
like
is.
of what happens to him next,
We get a
which
montage of like a news story montage. We get like newspaper clippings and like news headlines and things like that. Where like, Jerry Langford abductor gets sentenced to 6 years and 9 months
yeah,
in prison. Rupert Pupkin, and what we learn is that Rupert Pupkin, one, he gets out in like 2 years,
yeah,
2 years or so. No, he gets 6 years in prison. He gets out in 2 years and 9 months,
yeah.
and then he gets while he's in prison, he's working on his
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 book,
his act. He's working on an act. He's working on his material, and he gets contacted by a publisher to write
yeah.
his book. Called and what's his book title's name is? Oh man,
I'm sorry.
it's uh One Night of a King or something like that,
Yeah,
or
the King for a Night.
King for a Night. That's what
Yeah,
it is.
that's it. Yeah.
Because he gets announced as the king of
Basically, he
comedy coming on
becomes an
stage.
overnight celebrity
Yes.
because of this the fact that he kidnapped a celebrity, kidnapped Jerry, and that whole story of somebody that did that thing, even though I mean he people liked his act, but if he hadn't kidnapped Jerry, he probably would have been forgotten.
Well, I mean,
But
if he didn't kidnap Jerry, he no one
there,
would have ever
nobody would have cared.
nobody would have seen him on TV.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean,
in
like
general.
his celebrity came from the thing that he didn't care about. He wanted to be a celebrity because of his comedy, but he became a celebrity because he kidnapped somebody.
Yeah. He got a
And
book deal. He got set up with his own show. The
yeah,
last thing we see in the movie, the last scene in the movie is him being announced as the Rupert Pupkin, the king of comedy, and he comes out with that red
and
suit that
they
we
keep
see.
saying Rupert Pumpkin, Rupert Pumpkin, Rupert
Rupert
Pumpkin.
Pupkin. He comes out with that red suit that you see on the posters.
Yeah,
And yeah, and the last thing you see is people cheering for him and everything. And
and I think it also
that's it.
the fact that this is how this ended up isn't only a commentary on us as consumers, but also the industry, what the industry is willing to do.
Oh yeah, the
You
industry
know,
doesn't give a shit.
you know, yeah.
What we've learned about the movie world and the entertainment world in general is that when it comes to morality versus financial gain, they're going to take financial gain
Yeah,
pretty much
I
almost
mean,
all the
shit.
time. Pretty much.
MTV was not too far behind, and where you start to get reality shows and things with people that you don't give a shit about. They had these celebrity shows where people that have had bad, have been celebrities at one point, then their celebrity went into the toilet, and then they made shows about these people living together. You
Oh
know,
yeah, if there's something to make money off of, chances are the entertainment industry will do it. It's only now in like 2019 that morality is starting to come into focus, and where people are losing jobs because of things they say, or things that they've done before, things
but
that
it
they
could,
do now, things like, what I mean, like
and it could
now
be.
we're starting to figure things
Well,
out.
we are, but maybe we're going a little bit too far in that direction.
That yeah, but now I mean that's a whole different argument for a whole different thing, but I'm just saying, like 20, 30 years ago, if somebody were to do something that was immoral, but they were somebody who made a lot of money in their industry, in their profession, chances are they would have had that like kind of like pushed to the side or hushed up or something like that for the benefit of financial gain. Whereas now things are kind of reversed to where they would those things would be exposed and consequences would happen. Whereas Rupert Pupkin, I think he his example or what happens to him has only become more prevalent and more dangerous as our society has shifted in many different ways. It's become more dangerous because you get Rupert Pupkins who want to do something outlandish and crazy for the sake of wanting to become famous.
Yeah,
And often those things tend to be very violent and criminal.
yeah.
That's why you get a lot of people who go to um like go to malls or go to movie theaters or go to some places to shoot up places because a lot of their things that a lot of them have manifestos. A lot of them post on social media beforehand that they're going to do that. So they want the sense of recognition. They want the sense of fame. And that is why our society has shifted to where something like The King of Comedy is more of a cautionary tale versus just being a movie about a specific character. You
Sure.
know what I mean? And that's why, we didn't say too much about it. That's why there's been a lot of, I think, caution about uh, the Joker movie because because of the way in which the Joker is presented. Granted, he is a fictionalized character in a fictionalized world that's been around for 80 years, as Todd Phillips has said in an interview. There are people who will look at that and be like, "Oh, I want to be like him." You know what I mean? And I'm
Sure.
pretty sure there are a lot of people who maybe see,
Somebody out there might relate to the character enough
yes,
to want to act out his what he acts out in the film.
right. And the thing that I've told Steven, like when we first talked about doing this episode, and the thing I want to mention is that I don't believe that movies or music or television are the things that get people to do bad things. These people already have a problem to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, and I
These people already they're already at the stage where they need help.
and
If
anything
seeing a fictionalized thing is the thing that sets them off, there's something underneath and something embedded in them that's wrong right now that needs to be addressed.
yeah, I mean, anything can set them off.
Right.
It could be anything. I mean, what if they're at McDonald's and they eat French fries and it wants to make them kill people in McDonald's? I mean, you're gonna blame French fries now? We're gonna, like it could be anything. It could be some random person they come in contact with, says the wrong thing in the wrong tone that could finally make them want to kill somebody. It's a chemical imbalance in their brain.
It's a
Um,
there's a serious mental health issue with many people throughout our society that we're just now coming into, I think, this idea that mental health is a serious issue, whether it be depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, or the thought to inflict harm on others.
yeah,
Those all need to be addressed right now, and we're just starting to kind of take those things seriously. Whereas like 10, 20, 30 years ago, people's reaction to mental illness was like, oh, they'll get over it, or like,
yeah,
oh, it's not a big deal, or like, oh, why don't you just, think about something else? Like, if as if it's that hard to just
sure.
think something away. Whereas no, that's not that. There's something more serious going on here, and we keep seeing this over and over again, where those with mental illnesses do very violent things, and there's a culture of a lot of those people who feel that they need to do violent things in order to feel justified in life, and it's problematic. And granted, we're going a little off book here, but it plays into the psychosis that we're going to see in the Joker, and the same psychosis that we see in Rupert Pupkin, where they have this delusion. Granted, the degrees of these delusions and the context of these delusions are different. I don't think Rupert Pupkin was ever going to do anything violent in this movie to
No,
Jared
no,
Leto.
no, no.
You know what I mean? The Joker is probably going to in the Joker movie because he is a
He's
violent
definitely
person.
he's a
You know what I
different
mean?
animal. Yeah.
But they both have these delusions and psychological problems. You know what I mean? There's differencing. I'm just saying there's variance in psychological illnesses and mental illnesses
Sure.
that all need to be addressed in themselves. You can't just generalize all of these things. You know what I mean?
No. But
But yeah,
but
yeah,
also with that, we gotta say that. But even though that there are these issues out there, and we empathize with them issues, doesn't mean we should be censoring our art. Um, I don't think that means that the filmmakers and the artists have to have they don't have to. They don't have to have a responsibility to, you know, censor themselves because something might happen. Somebody might be
right.
influenced. Um,
Well, I mean, it's also not. I mean, it's not really their responsibility. I think it's more our responsibility. By our, I mean like society's responsibility in general to help these people who need the help.
yeah,
If, like I was just saying, if seeing a movie is something that's going to like embolden these people, they're the bedrock is already there for them. It's not up to the filmmaker to be like, okay, I'm not going to make this movie because somebody somewhere on the planet. Granted, there are literally billions of people. It's gonna be kind of hard for the one filmmaker in Hollywood or wherever to be responsible for thinking about, this fate of billions of people. Like, what if there's one person out there who's going to see
Yeah.
this and be triggered by it? It's kind of unfair to put that
Yeah.
pressure on them
Yeah.
because they're trying to make art, they're trying to make entertainment, they're trying to make their vision.
Because
They're
tons and tons
You
of
know what I
people can
mean?
watch this and just enjoy it for what it is, and other people are going to see it differently. That's why we love film. But you know, if
Yeah,
somebody takes it to an extreme like that, that's not the filmmaker's fault.
and there's I mean, we talked about this in our censorship episode and things like that where, you know, entertainment or art, there's artistic freedom of artistic expression, I think is really important because without it, we're going to miss out on so many wonderful things, so many great things, so many medium pushing things, like things that we would never be exposed to if there were restrictions on what we could and could not consume as people.
And
You know what I
also,
mean?
yeah, and also, if you can look at this movie in a different way, we're talking like we've seen it. We got an
Mhm.
idea what this movie is, but it's you should look at movies like this not as something that will automatically make somebody have a reaction, but we should be talking about the fact that the movie can make us have discussions and actually positive can come out of it. If you look at this as an example of what could happen if we don't do something about it.
It should be a cautionary tale.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
should be once again.
if
Yeah,
you want to take this movie as we're talking about we're talking about Joker here. If we want to take this movie as having serious real world repercussions when it comes to people's actions, we also have to view it as, and we also, like Steven said, should view it as
don't think
being
about it just
being
about
being
what
being
the
a teaching
reactions.
tool.
Yeah,
Being
it's a
a,
teaching tool. So don't look at it as being something that's going to make ignite people's emotions and things.
I'm
You
saying
should.
if it does, if you're treating it like it does do that, you also have to be open to it being a cautionary tale
Well,
about what not to do or
well,
what
that's
something or things to look for in people that would lead them to be this type of violent person. Do you know
but
what I
that's
mean?
yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing about
Because
us
there's a
people that
yeah.
critique film today. They just have headlines and they don't want to discuss the movies. They just want to know whether it's 100% on Rotten Tomatoes or they don't care about discussing the movie. They just if they see a headline and it says something, then that's what they're going to believe, and that's
Well,
all
not
they
only
want
that,
to know. That's all they want to know.
there are a
You know.
lot of movie critics out there who have very specific things they're looking for in movies, or they have a specific take on something, and that seems to be the only take that they consider genuine. And I'm a little bit more open when it comes to interpretations of things and different interpretations of things when it comes to the way I look at movies. You know what I mean? I want to see things from both sides and see,
Yeah.
what can arguments be made on either side when it comes to certain things. Whereas a lot of people are a lot more narrow focused, and I mean that's their prerogative. They can do
Sure.
whatever they want. They get paid to watch movies. We don't. I wish I did, but you know what I mean. There needs to be a more openness about it. But by openness, I mean like open discussions and not so much harsh discussions where like someone sees someone's opinion and they're like, "You're wrong. Go
And they
away and
belittle
die."
they
You know what I
belittle
mean?
them for their opinion. Yeah.
Right, and it's like, why not ask them why they think that way? Like, did this scene specifically say that overtly, or is it something that you are kind of leaning into a little bit more when it comes to, perhaps what your own interpretation is? You know what I mean? Like, be more open and honest about your discussions
Yeah.
and be more involved.
Yeah, we
And
talked about this before when we were talking about how Hollywood, films and have been changed the culture of how we talk about movies and things. We talked about it in another episode.
oh, well, I think when we talked about like, did we talk about fandoms yet? I don't even remember.
No,
No, but we've brought it up
we
so
had a
many
big
times.
discussion one time about how this particular topic where people don't discuss things like they used to. That it's just using headliner words. And nobody wants to have. I think we've discussed this before
Well,
in
people
depth,
like to
but
use like hot words,
yeah,
like
yeah.
very very politically driven words for headlines and just to grab people's attention. But but then you read some article like a review, and then you watch the movie, and you're like, maybe I mean you can see that in there, but is it is it as overt as you're making it out to
Yeah,
be? Whatever they're discussing. I
yeah,
mean, whatever their opinion is on something, whatever their the point they're trying to drive home. Whereas, like, oftentimes I understand their perspective and I can see where they would get that, but I don't think it's as powerful as they say it is.
sure.
And I'm way more lenient when it comes to certain things than I think other people, because depending on the context, of course.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's good to have your own voice and to I mean because that's what you're going to drive people to want to read your articles or listen to
right.
your videos or whatever it is. But I think we're sorely lacking open mindedness, like to where somebody you know very much can discuss both sides of it, and a lot of that has to do with knowledge, not equipping yourself with the knowledge of both sides because you're being ignorant. You're only keeping listening to one side.
Well,
So yeah,
yeah, I
and
would say it goes back to what you were saying during our spotlight is that people want instant not gratification in this sense, but instant information. Like,
yeah,
okay, is this movie good or bad? Like they want to know, like, is it good or is it bad?
they want to know
And
how to spend their
when everybody
money.
yeah, when anytime anybody asks me that, I'm like, that's a tough question because I think most movies are both good and bad because there's both good and bad things in them. No movie, I think, I mean, maybe not no movie, I'm using that in general, but like most movies are not entirely amazing and most movies aren't entirely bad.
Sure.
They're a mix of both, and sometimes one balances in one regard or the other. So when someone asks you if a movie is good or bad, it's kind of an unfair question because it's a
Yeah,
lot more nuanced than that.
it
You know what I
is.
mean?
Yeah, it's not black and white.
It's not black and white, but people want those answers
They
because
want
they want definitive
they want
verdicts on
definitive
things.
they want a definitive answer so they know where they can spend their money.
Right. I
You
mean,
know,
in modern times, that kind of makes sense when movie prices keep going up and up.
we get it. We talked about it before, but um, yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see the Joker film. I hope that though there's no knowing what could happen. Hopefully, um, people will be safe this coming
Yeah.
weekend, and nothing will actually happen. I know I'm going to the movies to see this right away. I'm not going to let the possibility of something like this keep me from the movies. Um, and I hope everybody enjoys it. I want to hear what you guys think about the movie when you see it. So comment, let us know. I mean, um, and I'm sure maybe we'll have a discussion about the movie as an episode maybe next week or in a couple weeks maybe as part of our episode next time because it's
Yeah.
gonna be a hot topic. So
Yeah, it's gonna be a brief take, and I assume this movie is still going to be in theaters by the time our next episode gets recorded.
oh yeah, but that I think that's a good stopping point. That is it for our episode, our spotlight on King of Comedy, and also kind of an after discussion about the Joker film, how it relates. Um, that's going to be it. Where can we find you, Andrew?
You can find me on Twitter at Cabzilla06, as well as my YouTube channel, Cabzilla Productions. And also, it is October, so everybody start watching those horror movies
Oh
because it's
yeah,
that time of year again.
and we'll probably have a horror themed episode either next one or the one after. But we'll definitely find something fun to do for this time of the year. And yeah, you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings, and you can go on Instagram and see all the goodies that I buy on Cinema Discovery Project. And you can find the audio for this podcast on Podbean or Apple Podcasts. And that'll be it. Thanks for listening. And hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.